Spain has been a continental crossroads since the beginning of history. This country has always been a melting pot. To this day, the people of Spain still consider the country to be a land of separate regions or empires. And likewise, the wine regions of Spain are just as unique, showing influences from all of these cultures. In this tasting, we have 4 wines from the north and east of Spain, and because of their proximity to France, there are a lot of common bonds, from the grapes themselves to the winemaking techniques. Many moons ago, the Kingdom of Navarra reached as far north as present-day Bordeaux, France. In the Middle Ages, monasteries in Navarra became rest stops for French pilgrims traveling south, providing shelter, food, and wine. Garnacha is a grape native to northern Spain, and it makes wines that are bright and fresh, very fruity, and often described as having a candied flavor. And this grape is also big in France, where it's known as Grenache Noir. The Terra Alta region of Spain is located within Catalonia, and winemaking also got its start here thanks to Templar monks. As the name suggests, this area is mountainous, and the vineyards hug the slopes of the hills to stay cool during long, hot, and dry summers. Cariñena is another grape that Spain shares in common with France. It makes these super intense red wines that are high in alcohol, tannins, color, and flavor too. And for that reason, you'll often find it blended together with other softer grapes, as is the case with this wine. On the eastern coast of Spain, near Valencia, we find a winemaking region that's so hot and dry that only the toughest and hardiest of grapes can thrive here. Amidst the olive trees and almond farms, the Levante makes some of Spain's biggest reds. Now, Garnacha Tintorera is related to Garnacha, but it's not the same as Garnacha. It's actually a French grape, better known as Agramont Garnacha. It's a very special and rare type of grape that actually has tinted pulp that gives the wine 15 times as much color and more flavor too. And Tintorera, as you can probably guess, roughly translates to tinted or stained. To complete the circle, we return north again. Cigales is in the Castilla y León wine country, where the Tempranillo grape is king. Now, Tempranillo is referred to as the Cabernet Sauvignon of Spain, and today we're going to find out why. Winemakers here use a lot of French techniques, including extended oak aging. And this wine here is 6 years old, going on 7, so we're going to get a chance to see how beautiful aged Tempranillo can be. Well, now, I am thirsty. I hope you are too. And since we've taken the 10-cent tour of these regions, it's time to taste these intriguing wines. Navarra is best known for its rosé wines, but more recently, soft-bodied reds like this one here. Now, Garnacha typically makes for easy drinking reds that can be made more complex with just a touch of oak aging. This one has 3 months of French oak. Man, I love Garnacha. It's just such a fun wine. And this one has gobs and gobs of red fruit in it. It tastes and smells like a baked pastry that's been filled with every berry imaginable. There's this really unique sort of Washington apple sweetness here, and the finish goes on for miles and miles, which is the sign of a really high quality wine. This Garnacha is quite electric. It manages to stay fresh and not overbearing thanks to its sharp acidity and lighter body. Cariñena can be pretty intense, so they typically blend it with other grapes. Cariñena only constitutes half of this wine, with almost equal parts Garnacha and a dash of Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon. Give that a swirl, a sniff, and a sip. It's a really juicy wine, and the tannins are quite remarkable. I have to imagine that that's coming from the Cariñena grape. We have loads and loads of black cherry and blueberry, and there's a slight burn that sort of reminds me of cherries flambé. And the finish is hot and spicy, it's almost peppery. This is a fiery wine that precariously balances the tannins, vibrant fresh red fruit, and a sweet softness. So we now know that Garnacha Tintorera is actually a French grape called Agramont Garnacha, which is known for its deep red pulp, which makes the wine super dark and flavorful. The DOP Pago is a designation that's roughly equivalent to that of the French Grand Cru. There's nothing higher. Ooh-wee. So the first thing that impresses me here is this pungent musk aroma, which could be the byproduct of organic winemaking, which employs wild yeast fermentation. And at a whopping 15%, you can actually feel the alcohol kind of tickles your nose hairs a little bit. So, wow, this one is so woody and tannic. And coincidentally, it was aged in Hungarian oak. And I almost feel like that Hungarian oak is giving it more of like a black pepper spice. It's so mouth-wateringly tart too, like fresh blackberries in the springtime. This is a dense and spicy wine, and it possesses a really strong structure that's made even more complex by some mature tertiary notes. Tempranillo is affectionately known as the Cabernet of Spain because it makes dark, bold, complex, and sometimes oaky wines. And as you can see, this baby spends 12 months in French oak, so yeah, I expect it to be pretty oaky. Also, it's going on 7 years old, so I expect to get some more mature, aged tones to the wine. Okay, the nose is pretty smoky. It's laden with these hickory and bacon fat smells, and there's even some butterscotch in there too. Flavor-wise, it's dry, spicy, and savory. Now there's very little fresh fruit flavor left in this wine. It's all tertiary or aged flavors. Flavors like fig, leather, and even sweet pipe tobacco. This is a pretty funky wine that's not shy about its age. It's quite an intense and serious experience. We've just tasted 4 delicious red wines from around Spain. And in most of Europe, food and wine are pretty much religion. So it would be a sin not to pair these wines with some food. For the Spanish, lunch is probably the biggest meal. And in Spain, tapas, or small bites, are a way of life. It's rumored that the first tapas were created by King Alfonso X. He was recovering from a grave illness and during that time could only eat small bites with wine. And he liked the idea so much that he mandated that all local bars follow suit. Now, I'm not a trained chef, but I do know a thing or two about layering flavors to complement your wine. So I have some tapas suggestions here that are so simple and easy you can make them with things you have in the house or that are easily accessible at the store. Tapas are served many different ways, but traditionally they come on a slice of bread or a cracker of some kind. So as a base for both of these, let's use some crusty bread. Slice your baguette into biased cuts and toast them, either under the broiler or on a skillet with some olive oil. And for an added touch, you can put some fresh herbs next to the bread to infuse the flavor into it. We're going to top the first piece of bread with a soft cheese. I'm looking for something funky, so I'm using goat cheese. Top the cheese with some thinly sliced chorizo or sausage of your choice. And then we're going to top the chorizo with some sliced hard-boiled eggs. Oh, and here's a pro tip for you. If you want perfectly peeled eggs, steam them instead of boiling them. Garnish with fresh oregano, and for an added touch, you can add some cinnamon or nutmeg, which are actually huge in Spanish cooking. And for the second tapa, let's do something vegetarian. Taking some canned white beans, smash them into a paste with a fork, adding olive oil, fresh rosemary, salt, and pepper. And to give it a cheesy flavor, we're going to use some nutritional yeast. So that bean paste is going to be your base, and we're going to top that with some sauteed mushrooms, fennel, and black olives. Garnish that all with fresh tarragon, and if you want an additional kick, toast up some fennel seed and then grind it up in a mortar and pestle and sprinkle it over top. That's really going to blow everything up. And if you're not too crazy about the flavor of fennel or mushrooms, you can just simply top this off with some diced tomatoes for a more Mediterranean approach. For a different approach, these ingredients can be served over rice, and the beauty is that they can all be sort of mixed and matched and still work together. Just play around and experiment with different flavors. You almost can't go wrong. And there they are, your pairing recipes for this weekly tasting. Enjoy them in good health and buen provecho.